Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2015 Volkswagen Golf SportWagen, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver. So there is two big reasons why I really like this hitch. The first one being the way it's going to look. For the most part, it's going to be completely hidden. The only thing you're going to be able to see is this receiver tube opening, but it's still going to be really easy to get to. And in my opinion, it's almost going to look factory on the back of your Golf SportWagen. And the other reason is that this is really going to work well with folding accessories, especially bike racks. And we've come to find that many of our customers plan on using their hitch for that reason. That's going to work good for a couple of different reasons here. The first one being it's going to give us really good bumper clearance. So the end of the receiver tube opening is going to be pretty much flush with our back bumper. So we shouldn't have to worry about any of those folding accessories coming in contact. The other one being ground clearance. So since this hitch does sit up a little bit higher, nice and tight against the bottom of our bumper, we're going to get a little bit more room from the ground. And that way, if our accessories do happen to have shanks that come down a little bit, this will get them higher up off the ground. That way we don't have to worry about bottoming out. Now this is a Class 1 hitch. So it's going to have that 1¼ inch by 1¼ inch receiver tube opening. And I really like that it's going to have a reinforced collar. Not only for extra strength, but in my opinion, I think it's going to make the hitch look a little more complete or finished, if you will. It is going to have a 1/2 inch pinhole. Now, a pin and clip does not come included, but if you need one, you can pick it up here at eTrailer. We're going to have loop style safety chain openings, which aren't huge, but they are really easy to get to and should be big enough to allow us to use just about any size hook that we might have. Now, as far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 200-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. So that's going to be the amount of weight that's pushing down on the hitch. So depending on the weight of your bikes, that's going to be enough for those 1, 2, and maybe even 3 bike racks. Now, as far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to be 2,000 pounds. That's going to be the amount of weight that's pulling on the hitch. So that's the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. Now, I do always suggest it's never a bad idea to check with your VW's owner's manual to make sure your Golf SportWagen can pull that much weight. Now, even though the hitch is going to give us really good clearance, it's not a bad idea to be on the safe side and just take some measurements to make sure that our accessories will work. If you go from the center of the hitch pinhole to the edge of our rear bumper, that's going to be about 3 inches. So that measurement is going to determine if those folding accessories can indeed be stored in this position without hitting the back of your Golf. Now if we go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, looks like it's going to be right at 15 inches. So if you do plan on doing some really light duty towing, maybe a kayak carrier or something like that, for example, that's going to determine if we're going to need to get a ball mount with either a drop or a rise. And in my opinion, in most cases, you're probably going to need to get a ball mount with a slight rise to make that happen. But at the end of the day, a good all-around hitch, it's going to kind of check all the boxes. Not only is it going to look great, but it's going to allow you to use those accessories. That way you can more easily do the things that you enjoy. Now, as far as the installation goes, even though you do have to remove the bumper, because the hitch is hidden, it's really not too bad. Everything's pretty easy to get to and straightforward. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put the hitch on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our Volkswagen, and we're going to need to remove our bumper cover. So the first thing we're going to need to do is unplug our taillights, and we can do that by getting inside of our hatch. Over here on the driver's side, we're going to have this panel here, and if you just twist these knobs, we're able to move that panel out of the way. So behind that panel, we can see our taillight wiring, and so we'll go ahead and disconnect that. I'm just going to use this poker tool, but you can also use your fingernail or a flathead screwdriver. But what we're going to do is just kind of pry back on that red clip. And then in the center there, we're going to have a black tab. If you push down on that, you can pop the wiring out. We're also going to have this plastic wing nut, and what we're going to do is remove that. We'll Pull that out, set it to the side, and then we can come back outside the car to remove our taillight. And now here, if we kind of hold our taillight and work it back and forth, we can pop it out and set it to the side. Over here on the passenger side, it's going to be set up the exact same way. So we're going to unplug our taillight and remove it again. The only difference is the panel here is just a little bit different. Way to get that is you kind of just pry underneath it and pop it out of the way. Now if we move over to our rear wheel wells, we're going to disconnect the back of the liners here from our bumper cover, and we're going to have a total of 4 screws. One here, there's one up here, and then there's going to be one more that's pointing up that's connecting this portion of the plastic to our quarter panel. So I'll go ahead and grab a T25 Torx bit. And get these removed. And here's these 2 screws up top here that are a little tricky to see. Once we have this last one out, we're going to repeat the same process over on the other side. Now underneath the car here on the passenger side, we're going to have this splash shield, and we're going to remove that. So we're going to have 2 plastic 10mm nuts. So we'll loosen those up. Those actually kind of stay connected to the plastic cover. And then if we work our way around this edge here, we're going to have some more Torx fit fasteners. So we'll pull those out, again using a T25. Once we get that one removed, we can set the panel down off to the side. And while we're right here, we're also going to take out this T25 Torx fit screw in the corner as well. And on the driver's side, we're also going to remove this T25 Torx fit screw right here at this corner. And kind of in the center of our bumper, along this bottom edge, we're going to have 4 more Torx fit fasteners. These are going to be a little different. We're going to use a T15 to pull the plastic bolt out. And then what we can do is grab a flathead screwdriver. If the base of the fastener is still stuck in there, you can just take that flathead and pop it out. So we're going to do that same thing to get the other 3 completely removed. Now with an extra set of hands, we can remove our bumper cover. So what you want to do is come to the corner here and gently pull out on it, and we're going to work our way towards the center. Sometimes the cover can get hung up on these little clips in here, and what you can do is grab a little plastic tool like this, or even a flathead screwdriver. Just kind of push down on those clips to release it easier. Now, whenever you get the bumper cover to pop off, you want to be careful not to pull it back too far just yet, as we might have some electrical connectors that we need to disconnect. In this case, we have one right here. And to get this out, what I'm going to do is take a flathead screwdriver and kind of push down. And while you're pushing down, you can pull on the other end of the connector to get the 2 separated. These can be a little tricky sometimes, so just be patient and you'll eventually get it. Once we have that connector separated, we can take off our bumper cover and set it to the side somewhere safe. With our bumper cover out of the way, now we can remove our actual bumper beam. Here on the passenger side, we're going to have a total of 4 13mm bolts, just one like this here at each corner. So we'll go ahead and get those pulled out. And on the driver's side, pretty much the same setup, except we're only going to have 3 of those 13mm bolts. Now, I do suggest before you take the last bolt out, just kind of make sure you have a hold on the bumper beam. What we're going to do is just kind of lift up on the bumper beam and then pull it straight back. And we can set it to the side for now. What I'm going to do now, since our hitch is going to sit right here in this area against the body of our vehicle, we're going to have a little bit of sealer that kind of runs around that edge there. And I want our hitch to sit flush. So what I think I'm going to do is just take a putty knife and just kind of scrape back some of the sealer, just kind of around the edges here. That way we can make sure that our hitch will be flush when we go to put it up. And I'm going to do this to both sides of our Volkswagen. Now, since we're going to be using these factory weld nuts that was holding our bumper beam on as attachment points for our hitch, it's not a bad idea to take a tube brush and some penetrating oil and just kind of clean those threads out. We're going to do that for all 7 of them. Now we can kind of go over our hardware that's going to hold our hitch and our bumper beam back into position. For the 3 inside holes, so what I mean by that is these 2 here on the passenger side and that single one over on the driver's side, we're going to be using a bolt and a conical tooth washer. So you want to make sure that the teeth on the washer are going to face towards the body of the vehicle. So it'll go in like that. Now for the 4 remaining attachment points, or the outside attachment points, which will be these 2 here on the passenger side and the same 2 on the driver's side, we're going to take a bolt, a split lock washer, put that over the bolt, and a flat washer. And those will thread in just like that once we get our hitch and bumper beam back into position. So now with an extra set of hands, what we're going to do is take our bumper beam and lay it over our hitch, and we're going to kind of raise it up as a whole unit. Sometimes it makes it easier just to put one of your bolts through too, kind of hold it together a little bit better. We can raise it into position and get our hardware started hand tight on each side. Now that we have all of our hardware in place and hand tight, we can go ahead and snug it all down. Now we can grab a torque wrench and tighten all the hardware down to the amount specified in our instructions. Now before we put our bumper cover back on, it's going to make it a lot easier if we remove this black plastic piece from the bottom of it. So in order to do that, if you kind of flip our bumper over, on the inside, we're going to have some tabs that we need to release. So you kind of grab a corner, kind of start to work it down. Sometimes they pop right out like ours is. Other times you will have to kind of work it out. If you do need to work it out, these tabs here, what you can do is kind of pry up on them with a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver, and as you're prying, kind of work it out. But in our case, it looks like this one's going to pretty much pop out for the most part. This piece popped out. Now that the two are separated, what we can do is reinstall our actual large bumper cover here. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our bumper cover. Don't forget to plug any electrical connectors back in if you disconnected any. And we'll simply just line this up and push it back in place. Now that we have our bumper cover clipped back into position, we can take this lower piece and get that installed as well. So I found kind of the trick with this is to take this smaller edge up here and kind of just start to get it clipped in. We're going to take the bottom edge, kind of push it back behind the hitch. Once we kind of get it in that opening, we can simply line everything back up and reconnect it to our bumper cover. At this point, we can re-secure all of our fasteners and our bumper cover in the opposite order that we removed them. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of our CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2015 Volkswagen Golf SportWagen.